unmute button. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. We are back in for our next session on the Furbaby Summit for day 2. It is Catterday and Saturday. We are back here with Lori Leduc. She is coming in. She is an awesome groomer, and she has been in the grooming industry for over 20 years. Now, that is a very, very long time. A lot of applause. She's committed to help to educate pet parents on the benefits of grooming over the lifespan of their pet. So we're going to talk about that and some of the things that you come across in your grooming business. So Lori, I will turn that over to you.
Awesome.
To get started.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been grooming for 20 years, so I've definitely seen a lot and done a lot with clients and their pets. And I think what happens is a lot of people are so excited to get their first pet that they don't think long term in terms of the grooming process, and sometimes that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of the excitement of having a new fur baby. So what I like to do is when I meet a client for the first time, I really like to make sure that they understand that process that they're going to have to go through for the life of their pet, especially for somebody with a little bit of length, some more hair than like some labs or smooths. They don't have as much grooming as say some of the doodles do, but there's still different kind of grooming things that need to be going on for the life of their pet. So I kind of just wanted to share some of that. So these are some of the things that I thought I come across regularly in terms of when I speak with clients for the first time. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of quickly go through some of the touch points. We're not going to teach anyone how to groom their own dog today. That's not the reason behind the seminar, but it's just to give everybody some thinking points to think about when they have their first pet, or even when they've had a dog for a few years. Sometimes they haven't had a good relationship with a groomer, so they don't really know what to expect or what they should be doing. So the first one is the most important, is the reasons for grooming their pet. And people don't realize that it really can be a health matter. So between matting, so if the dog is matted, it's uncomfortable for them to walk, to move. They can get bacteria growth underneath that wet matting. Fleas, lice, ticks, they can't be seen if their dog is really overgrown and matted. It's kind of a misconception. People think that they need to keep all this hair over the course of, if they live in a cold climate, that they need to keep all their long coat. But what happens is that matting doesn't really dry. So it's kind of like them walking around in a wet sweater for the whole season. So it doesn't really protect them from the cold. So we just have to learn to teach people how to manage those their coats during the changing of the seasons. And as well, you can't find lumps and bumps if you're not really getting into that grooming, checking them over and getting through all of that if they have a really thick coat. And then of course, for the health of your home, whatever's inside there is falling off on your floors or on your kids. So really a lot of things to think about when you're looking at grooming your pet. And then so when to groom your dog and how often. I always suggest to new pet parents is as soon as they've completed their first set of vaccinations, get them in for at least a meet and greet. For dogs that are coming in as a rescue, I suggest that they keep the dog in their home for about anywhere from a month to 6 weeks to let them settle in, get used to the routine before they take them out to be groomed. Let them show them some of their personalities first before they take them to the groomer, so that they have a little bit of an idea what to tell the groomer. If they've only had it 2 days, they really don't know what to expect because they don't know the dog yet. So that's one of the things I do. And as early as we can, because for some dogs, like I said, it's something they have to do their whole life. So if you get them used to it early, like anything else, it becomes a routine and it becomes easy for both you and the dog. For my clients, excuse me, I suggest a 4 to 6 week rotation for any dog that has any kind of length of hair. So some of the doodles, poodles, Havanese, Bichon, anything with a little bit of coat needs to have a more frequent haircut. If you're not able to do a more frequent, then switch to a shorter haircut, and then you can go for a longer period of time in between them. Because for some people, I mean, it's understandable. What you can afford is often a guiding factor in how many times you can have them groomed. So if you can't do it often, then take them shorter. There's no harm in doing that kind of thing. some of the tools and supplies that somebody should have at home if you're grooming, even just maintaining your dog, not necessarily full grooming at home. Everyone should have a wire brush, or anybody with hair on their dog needs a wire brush. And the most important, if not all of the tools, is a good comb. So depending on the thickness of the coat, different kinds of widths between the prong as well as the length will make a difference. But if you have a dog with any kind of length of hair, a comb is your best friend even before the brush, because what happens is the brush skips over some things, and the comb will get right down, right from the skin and out, and you won't have to worry about your groomer finding mats when she goes in, or to look at them when they come in for their grooming. If you have a smooth coat, so like a lab or a pug, something like a rubber curry, so when you rub through them, it'll stimulate the oil in the coat, so it'll help bring out a really natural, beautiful coat, as well as the static will help bring off all that little hair that you find on your black pants and your couch. Then the other thing is, if you're going to bath at home, that's a whole other big long story. But for now, a good shampoo and a tearless shampoo, so that you're not getting anything in their eyes. So just in a little touch, because a lot of people tend to want to bathe them at home. So if you're bathing at home, that's great. Like I said, use a tearless shampoo. Make sure that you are comfortable and that your dog is safe, because if you're not comfortable, the dog's going to feel it, and then you're going to have a dog that's nervous, and then when you go to have it groomed, that nervousness is going to follow them along, so it might make it harder for him to enjoy the process as his life progresses. So the other thing is, if you have a dog with hair, you need to make sure that the knots are out of the dog before you put them in the tub, because once the dog gets wet, they get tighter, and then it gets even harder to get out, and then you get them to the groomer, and the groomer ends up having to shave them because they don't have any other choice. And so, yeah, and then at this point, find a professional and let them do the heavy lifting. And then, so for some people, like when they get their dog, they don't realize the grooming that comes with them. Sometimes they don't meet the groomer, or they don't meet the breeder, or they just acquire them not really realizing. They just loved the coat, they loved the dog, they loved how it looked, but they don't realize how much work that's going to be involved with the grooming of them. And so just to keep it simple, I went with 3 basic coat types. So like a smooth being like a pug or a lab. And that's where I suggested the rubber curry, because it's nice and easy, gets all that hair out. I suggest do it outside because it makes a real big mess. You can use this in the tub. So if you're bathing at home, you can use this as well, and it'll help suds them up. If you have something with a long coat, double coated, so a German Shepherd or a Border Collie, a Golden Retriever, you can use this on a little bit on their backs, but you need to really use a good brush and the comb to really get that hair out. And with those long double coats, if you're not doing that on a regular basis, what happens is their undercoat will get really impacted against their skin, and that doesn't keep them warm. People again think that having that thick coat will keep them warm in the winter, but what it does is it doesn't allow for the coat to breathe, and that's when bacteria grows underneath it, and it really can cause issues. So getting that undercoat with your brush and then letting your groomer really blow it out and get it out of them is a really good thing. And then a curly coat, so a poodle or a bichon, it's kind of a misconception. People think, oh, they don't shed. Well, they do shed, but they shed into themselves. And so what happens is it becomes matted. So it doesn't fall out on your floor. It just kind of all clumps together and becomes a knot. So if you don't get through that, you can really run the problem of having a really matted dog, and then you have to have it shaved at some point, and it's not comfortable for them. So if you're in doubt, you can always call a groomer, make a time to go in and just have them talk you through it and show what it is that they're looking for and that you should be looking for. And it'll make it easier for anybody. Now, a hot topic is always nails, ears, and anal glands. If you ask 10 groomers, you get 10 different answers. So what I generally suggest is talk with your vet, talk with your groomer, between your owner. Nails should be done regularly. A lot of people think, like if they have a dog that's like a pug or a lab, that they don't need to have it groomed. But what can happen is their nails get overgrown if they're not walking. And if your nails are overgrown, then that can cause them to walk funny, which can cause their hips out of alignment, their backs out of alignment, and it can really cause more problems. So, and if they have a dew claw, the dew claw can curl around, or any of the nails really, but especially the dew claw, because it doesn't touch the ground. So it can curl around and go right into their pad, and that can cause infections and whatnot. So you really have to make sure that if you're not having them professionally groomed, at least you're having their nails done on a regular basis. And if you're brave, you can learn to do it yourself. And any groomer should be able to show you how to do it yourself so that your dog is maintained on a regular basis. But again, if you're super nervous about it, don't do it. Have somebody professionally do it, because you can scare your dog into not enjoying the process. Keep cleaning ears. Now, ears are a hot topic because there's so many things that can go wrong with ears. So for years now, I don't clean ears. I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. If the dog has no ear infections and no problems, just leave it alone. And that goes the same for ear hair, ear plucking. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't pluck ear hair. I trim it down, keep it a little neat. But I find for dogs that are really prone to ear infections, the more we're plucking and getting around in there and messing around, the more we irritate it, and then it can cause more problems. So I haven't done ear cleaning in a very long time, and I've had no definite. And I've got dogs that I've been grooming for the last 15 years I've had my business. So that, and none of them are coming back with ear infections because they're not having hair removed. So it's not that is an issue. Anal glands, depending on where you are, I believe some states it's illegal, or it's like a law to not be able to do anal glands. So I don't know all of that, but I know here in Canada, anal glands are often done by groomers. Again, I'm of the belief that if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I don't do anal glands. If a client asks for it, I ask why. If the vet has recommended it, sure. But if there's no real reason, if it's just a habit, anal glands are something that the dog will do naturally. So I don't believe in messing around with it. So as long as they're not having problems, don't start. And so if you're going to a groomer for the first time, it's important that you ask them, because sometimes they'll just do it. Some groomers will do it automatically with every dog they have come in. It's kind of starting to get away from that. So it's not a given, but ask your groomer if that's something that they do. And if you don't want it done, ask them not to do it, and they will. It's not something that's fun to do in the first place. So they're happily skip that process, I'm sure. So yeah, so then the other thing is really simple and easy is tips to finding a professional groomer. You want to make sure that you have a good relationship. If you've got a dog that's, got a lifespan of anywhere between 15 and 18 years, that's a long relationship that you can have with one person. And I have dogs that I've been grooming, since they're puppies, and they're now, going into their senior years, and I've had them for the whole time. So if you develop a good working relationship with your groomer, then you will have that. And as well, so when you're looking for a good groomer, look for word of mouth. Ask around to your friends, see somebody at the dog park. If you see somebody whose dog you think you like looks good in their haircut, then ask where they have them done, and then go in and visit them. What I suggest is to call ahead, because like any business, they're going to be busy. If you come in on their busy time, they may seem short or not as friendly, but that's because they're busy and stressed and trying to, deal with dogs. So what I suggest is call ahead, make a little bit of an appointment to come in, meet the groomer, maybe at the beginning of a day or the end of a day, or a quiet day when they have more staff, and go in and see the salon that you're going to be bringing them to. And that'll make you feel more comfortable. Some people, get really worried about sending them off because the dogs can't speak. They don't know, what's going on. So go in and get a feel for the salon and the environment yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable, then move along. There's plenty of groomers out there. You'll be able to find one that suits your needs and makes you feel safe and comfortable. And when you go in, ask questions. If you have certain recommendations or things that you want, speak to the groomers. And if you don't feel comfortable with their responses, then again, find one that's got the same philosophy that you do. There's somebody out there for everyone, just like there's a vet for everyone and a doctor for yourself. Some you feel more comfortable with, and some maybe not so much. So look around. You don't have to go to the first one you see. And as well, expect the groomer to ask you questions, because they want to be safe. They want your dog to be safe. So they're going to ask you some questions about your history and the dog and whether he bites and those kinds of things. And sometimes people aren't quite as honest as they should be. And it's because the groomers aren't asking you because they don't want to do your dog. They're asking it because they want to be safe. Just again, like your doctor asks you if you have any medical history, they're doing it so they know how to work with you. And it's the same thing with a groomer. They're asking you these questions because they want to know what's best for your dog. And that might mean which groomer to have do your dog, because this groomer, loves to work with senior dogs that have a hard time because they're old, or this one loves working with puppies. So answering the questions honestly will really help direct your dog's care for over the course of his lifetime. And then, so being honest with them, and that will help you have the right fit, because like I said, you're going to have this for the rest of his life, and you want to really have a good working relationship. I have clients, like I said, that I've had for years, and we're not vets, but we often come across things because we see our clients every 4 to 6 weeks. So we see them quite often. So if we often find things that show up, and we'd be like, oh, this bump wasn't here, last time, it's here now. What do? We have send them off to the vet. So we can often see things a lot faster and send them off to medical attention and have it treated before it ever became an issue. So having a good working relationship with your groomer is really, really important for the life of your pet. I really believe that. So so that's pretty much me and grooming. And this is just a picture of my Furbabies.
Oh, they are precious. Oh my gosh. I just want to snuggle all of them.
They would happily snuggle all day. I'm surprised that one is behind me, but I'm surprised they're all being quiet. I'm very surprised that everyone's being quiet. Clearly nobody has knocked or shut a car door down the street.
The FedEx person hasn't showed up yet today.
Yeah, that would just be Prime. Prime Amazon shows up to drop a package. But so those are most of those are the questions, or not the questions, but that's the information that I like to have for my clients to share with them and make sure that they're on the path to a good working relationship with their groomer.
I think that is such a valuable list of tips and things to take note of and things to plan for, because number one, it's a lot of information. And number two, you get so excited when you're first adopting a new dog or a puppy or bringing them home that sometimes you just have puppy joy. You don't think about all the things that are going to come into it.
Yes.
But I love the fact that with you, it's like you said, when you see the dog that often, or even if you see the dog, every 6 weeks or every 2 months, depending on the breed of the hair, you're often or almost always seeing the dog more often than the vet does.
Yeah.
And, we tell Furbaby parents, like, look, and this was kind of a trial by fire, something that I learned over the years. Go through and do a once over on your Furbaby, whether it's your dog or your cat, from tip of the nose all the way down to the end of their tail.
Yeah.
Check their side, check their body, check for lumps, bumps, see if they get grumpy. Check and see if they've got sensitive spots. Because it's like you said, when things start matting and bacteria gets under there, you get infected. It's a mess.
Yeah.
So that is really, really valuable, and it's people just don't think about it, and it falls into one of those buckets of things you don't know. Yeah. So it's really valuable to know that. And I mean, you have a great opportunity to be able to stave off a lot of issues and illnesses before they become something really, really detrimental,
Yeah.
So we had a question. So your service is mobile.
Yes.
What is it like having a mobile service rather than one of the standalones?
It's great. It's great in that it's, unless your family has more than one dog, your dog is there alone. So if you have a dog that maybe doesn't really enjoy the process of grooming or doesn't enjoy other dogs, then just having them alone is really, really nice for mobile. For mobile as well, it's you don't have them all day. Again, some grooming salons have different protocols, so they'll bring all their dogs in at say 8:30 in the morning, and then they groom all day, and then nobody picks up until 5, because it's disruptive for people coming and going all day. So they in at 8, out at 5. That's a long day for some dogs. So mobile, they're not, it's an hour and a half, depending on the size of the dog. So they're in, they're out, and they're back in their house, and they don't have to drive them anywhere. And your client doesn't have to be home. So once you know people, like for first timers, for clients that I have never met before, I'll often say, as long as I meet you the first time, after that, I'm happy to take a code, a key. What most people have door codes now, you don't have to have keys. Just they give you a code, and then you go grab the dog, groom it, and put him back. So it's a lot easier on the pet as well as the people, because there's no I can't get there. It makes it really easy. I really enjoy it. It's a little tougher in the winter here in Calgary. Some days it's a little cold outside, not inside. My mobile is very everything is heated, and it's very hot and warm. It's a small trailer that I pull, but sometimes I have a large generator that sits outside on the tongue of the trailer. So if it's too cold, the generator says, eh. So it is what it is. You just learn to rearrange dogs. That's what you do. And my clients are so regular that it's not an issue. They know they live here. They know it's cold. So
I was going to ask if you did bathing in your unit, or if you actually if you had to do that in the home.
Nope.
So especially with kids, it does get really cold.
Yeah. It's just everything in, like I said, it's a 6x8 trailer that I pull. Everything is in the trailer that I would have in my salon. The only thing that's not there is kennels to put dogs in, because I don't need them. So it has a full size tub, full table size, and all of my equipment, and me and the dog. So yeah, it's plenty. Everything you need is right there. And hot water, furnace, air conditioner, the full meal deal.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just really fantastic. It's just the convenience of having somebody to be able to come to your home, and, like you said, avoid the car trips and avoid, even not having to be home.
Yes.
It's akin to having a really great pet sitter. Here's your key, here's the code. It's a trust, and that's wonderful.
And that does, sorry, as we speak, I look up and it's snowing as we talk about cold.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've had spring yesterday. It was 20. Well, I don't know what that is in probably 60 degrees for you guys. I'm like, I'm doing that math. I don't know. It was really warm today. It's snowing. So what was I saying? Relationships. It really does help. I find being mobile really does bond, that give you much more of a relationship, because you're at the people's home. So it's a closer relationship. I do have a really good relationship with all my clients, but you definitely develop a better relationship, I find, when you're coming to their home, and it just feels more intimate, as opposed to just I worked in, plenty of sticks and bricks salons. Everybody has its place. But for me, when in Calgary here where I am, it was a kind of, we're an oil and gas town, so the economy can fluctuate. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to just go mobile, and that way, if anything changes, you can just move it. So it's nice and easy.
I think that gives you a lot of greater flexibility as far as running the business too. So that's
nobody
fantastic.
knows when you're working or not.
There's that too.
Yeah. You need a day off, you just take it. Nobody's walking by your salon and seeing it.
So you mentioned I love the term, you've worked in sticks and bricks before. I'm going to have to borrow that. Yep. How did you transition into going from that to having your mobile unit? How did you do that?
That was kind of the thing. The first salon that I had, they sold the building. And so I traveled for a year. And then when I came back, I leased just a space that was already set up in a doggy daycare. And when that lease ended, we didn't want to renew it. And I just, just kind of, I actually had gone to a client's house. There was one client that I used to go to their house because their dogs were really nervous and the mom was sick. So I said, okay, I will groom them in your home. And when I pulled up to their house, they had, there was gardener with a big trailer or whatever, because I have a camper van and I didn't want a big van like the regular mobiles have. So when I saw the trailer, I thought, well, what if I put it in a trailer instead of a mobile van? And so I started researching, and there were some in the States that had different trailers. And so, yeah, so I just bought an empty cargo trailer, and I had amazing RV guys here that have been in business for like over 25 years now, and spoke to them, and they agreed to build it out for me. So I bought all the stuff to go inside it, and they put it all together. So yeah, they were really, really, it's funny because it's been 4 years, like 4 or 5 years now. But had I waited, like if I had to do it now, with how busy the RV industry has become because of the pandemic, I probably wouldn't have been able to have it built for over a year, because they just don't have the time. There's just not enough time in a day for these guys. They're trying to keep up with just everybody who bought an RV during the pandemic, trying to keep them on the road. So yeah, so I lucked out, really. They're great guys, and it's handy that they're here. So when I do have issues, I can quickly give them a call, and they can talk me through things, or I can pop in and they can say, oh, this is a quick fix, this is something longer. So yeah, I'm really happy that I had it done here and not bought it from somewhere else where people look at it and don't really know the ins and outs of it. So it's really handy.
That is really cool. And you're right, with everything that's happened with the pandemic, and now people are getting back up and going. It's slammed.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the other thing with the pandemic. I was able to work. I didn't have a break. I got to work the whole time, because again, it is isolated. If I didn't want to see the clients, if clients had any issues, they could just stay in a room. I could grab the dog. They put him on a long leash. Some little guys, I put a kennel out on the ground. They put the dog in. I grabbed the dog. There was no contact. So yeah, there was, and my clients were good. There were a few people that did have COVID, and they'd call and tell me, and okay, we'll reschedule. No big deal. So yeah, I was really lucky to not have any disruption.
That was a great way to make it through. That really well. I mean, even more so to the timing of being able to get the trailer done like you did. I mean, that just is phenomenal. We were going to ask, what are some of the more interesting experiences you've had grooming, and especially during COVID, or
I think with COVID, the only thing, some of the interesting is some of the dogs are not as social. So, I have going to some of the houses with dogs that have not been out very much. They're not as friendly. I mean, I don't have bad dogs, but they're just, they take a little while to calm down. They settle down, but it's very funny. I have this new client, and I've just groomed, I think I've groomed him about 4 times. And I think he's like a Havanese mix or a Cavapoo. But he is, I said I should make him my commercial. When I go, I can hear him screaming when I come out of the truck. I can see him in the front window of the house, and he's screaming. He's so excited. And when I get to the house, he's like, his dad can hardly contain him. And so we go out, we groom. He's great. He's well behaved. And then when I bring him back, he screams, and I have to hold him, or we can't talk, because he's so excited that I'm there. And then the dad was saying, when I leave, he has to he says, I have to give him all kinds of treats, and I have to take him for a walk, because he's just so jacked that he's like, that he saw you. And it's, like compared to some of the dogs where they, run away and hide under a table when you come in the door. So I was like, oh, he makes me feel like, if you're having a bad day, I just go visit them. But yeah, so there's, that kind of thing. And then, there's where you find, like when you were talking about illness and whatnot, I've had dogs where I've groomed them for a number of years, and I had a terrier, for example. He was always so upset about the dryer, and it was him. There was no changing it. And so I knew what to expect, but then all of a sudden he came, and he didn't. He stopped being aggressive with the dryer. He stopped being, his temperament changed. And as much as we think, oh, that's awesome, he's figured it out, I was like, there's something wrong. There is something wrong with this dog, because he's definitely not the same dog. And unfortunately, that's what happened, is over time, it turned out he was sick and he did pass away. And not that, us finding it would have made any changes, but we sent her on the path to start looking. And we've done that a few times with different things. When people are like, saying things, I'm like, well, if that's the case, if you're being honest with your responses, then I would definitely have this looked at medically, because there's definitely something going on. If nothing's happening on your end, then definitely have it looked at medically. So yeah, there's definitely a couple of times that's happened. So it's good that we can see that and foresee it, and hope that they get the help that they need before it becomes something that can't be taken care of. So it's always nice when we find something that can get them help before it's too late. Yeah,
because that's a huge issue. If one thing we try to remind people of or tell people about is, if you are the best person to understand once you get a baseline of your fur baby's behavior, whether they're spastic or excited or mostly quiet, or whatnot, what their behavior is. If that changes, it's not suddenly often good, especially suddenly. If you have a baby that's running around and is full of life and energy, and then suddenly they're laying down and they don't want to get off the armchair, there is something wrong. It may be something slight, but it just
sometimes.
You just need to watch out for that. Yeah.
I've had I do a lot of Portuguese water dogs, and they're high energy. And they can be sometimes hard to groom, but I had a good friend, and she had one, and he was about 4 or 5. And when she got him, her boys were 8 and 10, for example. And the boys are competitive athletes, so they are skiers, so they're bouncing off the furniture and doing flips, like they're very energetic. So the dog was energetic. Well, go ahead 5 years. Now she has teenage boys who aren't jumping off the couch anymore. They're off on the ski hill, jumping off the ramps. So everybody in the house has, the energy has come right down. And so when she brought him in, she said, I know you're not a vet, but can you just see if something's off? And that was the thing, is that for over 5 years, the energy in the house had changed. So now the energy in her dog had changed. Plus he was also 5. But so I was like, no, he's just, now everybody's kind of come down in their energy level, and now he has come down in his energy level. So everybody's kind of on the same keel, and he was fine. So sometimes
I was going to say kudos to her for noticing that too. Oh, yeah. That's important. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, like what I said too about, being honest with your groomer, I've had a lot of groomers are more than happy to work with a dog that's hard to work with. Some won't, that's fine. And somebody else move on. I've done some work, where I've had dogs that have been, ejected from other grooming salons for behavior, and then but worked with them and brought them from, I have one Cocker Spaniel who, when we first came to me, somebody else had to hold him, and I had to try and groom him, and he always went home looking like he'd been attacked by like a hedge trimmer. Like, it just was awful. But working with the client and working with the dog on a very regular schedule, we now I can groom him by myself. And I don't have to muzzle him, and we can get it done. And I've been grooming him for 8 years. So if you want to work with the dog, that's great. But you also have to be the client, the owner, the pet parent has to be willing to work with you. If you've got a dog that's hard to manage, every 3 or 4 months, is it working with your groomer? It has to be more often, so that the dog gets used to you and the process. And if anybody that has a dog that's hard to manage or behavioral issues, if you can't commit to a 4 to 6 week schedule, then you're going to have to learn to groom him yourself, or you're going to spend a lot of time bouncing between groomers, because someone's not going to commit if you can't commit, and that they're not going to commit to because you could get hurt, which puts you out of work. And if you can't work, you can't make money, so people have to see that. But also your pet can get hurt, because if your pet is biting at the objects, well, now you have a sharp pair of scissors or a clipper, and he's biting at it. He can bite that. He can bite your scissor blade. He can bite your clipper blade. So people have to realize that sometimes accidents happen, and it's not because the groomer's done anything wrong, but because your dog's behavior is making it more challenging. So if that's the case, and the groomer has told you that, then working with the right groomer and working together will help keep you safe and your groomer safe. And really, that's what you want. You want your pet to come home happy. And also, with those kinds of dogs, I also explain to clients that if you have a dog that's hard to manage, you're not going to get a great haircut. You're going to get a healthy, safe haircut, which means he might have something sticking out here, there, everywhere this time. Next time, we'll try and get those parts. You know what I mean? He's not going off to the Westminster Kennel Club show. He's going home to lie at your feet. So if he has some little funky thing sticking out here or there, that's okay. We would rather send him home happy and healthy with all his bits in place than to send him home with a tongue gash or, you know, a clipped pad. So people have to be a little bit relaxed in terms of what their haircuts look like. Again, it's dog hair. It grows back for the most part. So if you didn't get a haircut you liked, do better. And we'll move, you know, we'll work with that. Let's speak. And on that note about bad haircuts, if like a lot of clients will say, oh, don't shave him because the last time he got shaved, he hid for a week. Well, yes, he did, because again, the energy in your home said something terrible has happened. When you pick up a dog that's shaved, if you burst into tears and have a panic attack because he looks so ugly, that dog has no idea why. All he knows is mom is scared or upset, and so I'm going to be as well. And so he responds to your behavior. So I tell my clients before, I never show a shaved dog until I speak with the owner again. I never shave a dog without letting them know. But I also will say when they come in, remember, he's going to be very naked. But even if you say, oh my God, you're so ugly, you're happy about it. If you burst into tears and have a meltdown, he's going to be scared. He's going to be upset. And it's not because he's got no hair, it's because you are. He doesn't care he has no hair. So that's, you know, what I explain to my clients. And you know, some people will still be a little bit upset, but they move past it. And it's the same thing with bringing your dog to the groomer for the first time. I've had like first time groomers or first time clients where they come in and they're clutching the dog like it's going off to the gas chamber. And I'm like, what is going on here? And he's so scared. I'm like, of what? He's never met me. Like, what does he have to be afraid of? He's not afraid. You are. So if you are telling your dog something terrible is going to happen, then yeah, he's going to be afraid. Then you're setting him up for failure. So it's like sending your kids to kindergarten. If you are standing on the walkway having a meltdown, your kid's having a meltdown too. If you're happy and excited, your kid's happy and excited. It's the same kind of thing. So if you're not, and if you are that worried about leaving your dog with this person, perhaps that's not the right fit. Maybe you should look further. You know what I mean? Like if you're not comfortable, if you don't think that I can handle your pet, well, then maybe I'm not the groomer for you. Like coming to me, clutching your dog for dear life doesn't say I trust you. It says I'm afraid. So then it's, you know, some of the clients that have to do the work, which we all know with training, that's often, you know, 95% of the work is working with the parents. So yeah, so check yourself and then work with the pet and your groomer, and then it's just in the end, your dog will have a much better experience, and that's what you want. You want them to have a happy, healthy experience and you know, be safe.
You know, I could not agree with you more about all of that, and it crosses over even into going to the vet. Because if you come out, I've had animals come out with some, you know, gnarly stuff before. And if you freak out and start crying and, you know, just deep six, they are so bonded to you that they're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And they get stressed out and freaked out. Otherwise, if you come in, okay, well, this is what's in your neck, or we're missing a leg today. All right, you look gorgeous. Awesome. Exactly. We're going to fix this. Then they're like, okay, where's my food? You know, I was going to ask you, you had mentioned, ask your groomer questions to see if you guys have the same philosophy. What are some of the questions that you'd like for clients or would recommend clients to ask to figure out if you guys are on the same page?
Yeah. Well, one of the things for somebody that's going to a salon as opposed to mobile is, do they keep them all day? Because not everybody wants their dog to be there all day. If that's the case, find somebody else. What type of shampoos they use. Some people are very concerned about any kind of natural products or non-natural products. Not everyone asks for vaccinations. Again, some places I know it's the law kind of thing, but everybody, so actually let's go stop there. grooming is not like hairdressing. So you don't have to go and have like a real certification. Like there are no mandatory exams for you to be able to be a groomer in your state or your town or your country, whatever. So anybody could hang a shingle on the door and say, I'm a dog groomer. You can't do that if you're a doctor. You can't do that if you're a hairdresser. You have to take tests and exams and go through the work. So if that's important to you as well, that's also something you can ask your groomer, like what kind of training do they have? What do they kind of continuing education do they do? What kind of work do they do in terms of learning behavior? Those kinds of questions. If those are important to you, then those are questions that you would ask of your groomer as well. Sometimes some groomers will keep dogs in kennels, some don't. So if you go to a salon that when your dog is finished, or when it's, so when it gets there and when it's finished, we'll spend time in a kennel. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe in kenneling your dog, you're not going to want to leave them in a place where you're going to have them kenneled. So some groomers will let them run around on the floor, others will put them in kennels. So if that's important to you, that's something you need to know from the beginning, so that you don't get there on the first day and go to put the dog in the kennel and the dog freaks out because the person's never used a kennel before, and then they have to leave because they can't keep them. So having questions like that for the groomer are important. What other kinds of things? I mean, some of it's kind of personal, you know what I mean? Like that, how many dogs they do in a time frame. I said vaccinations, yeah, whether they have to be vaccinated or not be vaccinated, natural products, or whether the same person will do their dog all the time. That's sometimes important to somebody. If you go to a salon where there's 5 or 6 groomers and 3 or 4 bathers, there's no guarantee that every time you come, you're going to have that same groomer. So if that's important to you, you can ask ahead of time. Most grooming salons will say, absolutely, you know, Jenny can do that dog forever, and we'll put that on his card. Some groomers or some places will say, we can't do that because, one, we can't guarantee Jenny's going to be here forever, and we can't always guarantee she's going to be available on the day that you are coming. So if it's a serious, then go to someone who only has one groomer. That's going to be the only place. So those are some of the questions. But then once you get there, sometimes, you know, you'll see something that you question, but those are some of the most important ones I think that most clients will have.
Those are really good questions. Those are very, very good questions. Yeah. And that hits the best points of it.
Yeah.
Can we ask you, or has anyone asked you, do you have any breeds or any types of dogs that you find that are more moody than others, or harder to calm down, or?
I don't know that they're harder to calm down. A lot of people think that it's the big dogs, but it's actually the little dogs, because the little dogs kind of get spoiled. So they don't always have as many rules. So if you have a German Shepherd who is nipping, as people like to call it, biting, at your brush when you're grooming him, you think, oh, that's not funny. If you have a 100-pound dog doing that. But when you have a 5-pound Yorkie doing it, people think it's funny. So they let them keep doing it. So then you have a dog that's, you know, 5 pounds, and it still hurts when it bites.
Still hurts, yes.
So it for me, it's a lot of times the little ones that I don't have any breeds necessarily that I won't do based on somebody's behavior, like on stereotypes. Whatever, if they come to me, for now, I do have a little bit, like I don't do some of the big guys just because it's a lot of work, and I've done this for so long that I'm like, there's some young groomer out there happy to do your big Newfoundland. I don't want it, you know. So there's lots of dogs and lots of groomers, or there's not as many groomers anymore. There feels like everybody's got a shortage, but for the most part, you know, there's a groomer out there for your dog. So if you don't want to do big dogs, don't do big dogs. If you don't want to do a certain breed, don't do a certain breed, because it doesn't make you, if you're not excited to do the dog, then the dog also knows that, right? So if you're not going to be, I also teach groomers. And if you're afraid of getting bit every single day, then why are you here? Because you can't go, like, yes, it's a possibility, but you can't go into work thinking every day I'm going to get bit today. You know, police officers don't go to work every day and say, today I'm going to get shot. Like, if that's all you're thinking of, terrible things are going to happen. So that's how I look at most dogs. Like I had a dog just, last week, and the mom was very stressed. She said, like, the last groomer said he was bad, and she left, and now they don't know what to do, and he bites when the clipper touches his legs, and this, that, and the other thing. And so I said, well, we'll give it a shot and see what happens. I'm not saying I'm amazing. I'm just saying I'll try, and if he doesn't work out, I'll bring him back and say, keep looking. But because she told me what was the problem, like he didn't like the sound and the vibration of the clipper. So all I did was turn on my dryer. I have a stand dryer it's not super loud, but it's loud enough that it's distracting. I turned that on, and then I turned on the clipper, and he didn't have any reaction because there was already so much noise going on in the room that he didn't pay attention. And so he did nothing. He was fine. Like, he's just like any other dog I've done. So I was like, I don't know who was grooming you before, dude, but you're fine. So that happens as well, right? Because sometimes the people that we're grooming are new. And again, not saying anything bad about a new groomer. I teach baby groomers, so I know what they're like. But you tend to be more nervous. So if you are a little bit hesitant about your own skills, then when you're working on a dog who might be a little bit edgy, now he's thinking, oh, this is going to be terrible. And he starts to be a little bit more agitated, and then he'll push the limits. So then the groomer says, oh, he's terrible. But then someone who's been grooming for a longer time is fast, can just get it done, get in, get out. It doesn't have that same problem. They're like, there's nothing wrong with him. But he, like I tell people, is most of the time, by the time he figures out what's been going on, it's over. Like, I can get all his nails done before he even realizes he was having his nails done, because I'm fast and I've been doing it a long time. So my confidence goes to the dog. So it's not always the dog. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just that the groomer was just figuring out life grooming for herself and the dog, and it just didn't mesh. That's fine. Move on. So he did just fine. But again, I said, this is the first time he's seen me. We'll see what happens the next time, because the next time he knows who I am. He knows what's coming. So now he might show me a little bit more attitude because he's prepared. Whereas last time he wasn't, because he had no reason to fear me because he had never met me. Right. So yeah. So but I'm sure he'll be fine. But again, that mom was very honest and open with the conversation. So I knew what to expect. I knew how to plan for him. So I was ready to make sure that he had the best experience that we could have, so that we didn't have to have him bite me. Nobody wants to get bit today. That's my motto, so if we can avoid it by just doing some really simple tricks, then, that it's easier for everyone. And now he's like, I can groom him and I'm not concerned, and mom can breathe easy, because when she sent me a text after thanking me, because she said, we were so stressed. They've got a new baby. They're so stressed. She's like, that I'm trying to find a new groomer. She said, I was so concerned that you were going to come back 5 minutes after you took him and say you couldn't do him. So it causes a lot of anxiety for everybody when they have a dog that doesn't really enjoy the process. So if you find somebody and work with them, then you can get them to the point where you don't have that problem. And that's what you want. You want your dog to be able to go to the groomer and not be stressed out about it.
I think that's also a plus point to taking them when they're younger, getting them started early.
Yeah.
It's social. They're more used to it. It's akin to, I mean, funny. It's almost like trying to give your cat a bath. If you start young, you have a better chance of being able to do it. Been there, but it's that and clipping nails. And like you said, some people try to do this at home, and
and again, I'm happy to work with a client. Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm happy to work with a client. I tell them I will not teach them to do a puppy's nails. Once that dog is like a year or two, absolutely, I can show you how to do it. But I'm not showing you how to do a puppy's nails, because you're going to ruin them. And I've had situations where dogs have been ruined. I've had dogs where, I've groomed them forever, done their nails, and all of a sudden I get them one day and they're hellcat. And I was like, what is going on? And I speak to the owners and I'm like, something's going on. I'm like, what's with his nails? And she said, oh, well, they don't worry about it. They do it at his daycare. And I'm like, oh, that's the problem. The people who are at the daycare, which probably just, again, not terrible people, all, looking, trying to do what's good, but they're probably not as confident or as fast. So he fights, they struggle, and now he's upset by it. And now when I go to do it, he's thinking that's going to be the same experience. So he gives me a hard time where he never did before. So again, because I know my clients, I know when something's different. I know something's going on. I can tell when people are sick by the reactions to their dog. Like, people, like, I had one client, her husband had a brain tumor, and I groomed that dog all the time as a big Bouvier. And when he would come, he was always a really good dog to groom, but sometimes he would come in and he would do everything he could to get off that table. And I'd know. And when she would come back, I would ask if her husband was currently sick, if he was having an episode or doing treatments, or had he been away. And she was like, yeah, he's been in the hospital. He just came home. And I'm like, he knew, like, you can tell by their behavior, something is not right. He does not want to be here today. So you can definitely, with kennel. I always tell clients, if you're going to go on a holiday, so this is something that we didn't discuss. So if you're going on holidays, I suggest have your dog groomed before they go to the kennel, because what happens is they go to the kennel with a long coat. There's nobody at the kennel that's going to brush and comb your dog every day. So it's going to get matted, and then you're going to come back from your holiday and it's going to have to be shaved naked. So instead, take him short before your holidays, get him back, maybe have a quick bath, and then let his hair grow back in a couple of weeks, and then get us back on track, so that you're not coming home. And because what happens too is then you come back from your holiday, you pick up the dog at the kennel, and then you bring it to grooming the next day because he smells. Well, now the dog is losing his mind because he just got picked up from the kennel yesterday, and now he thinks he's going to be dropped off again. So now he's stressed. So if you switch it up, do it the other way, then it's better for everybody. And some kennels will, if you have a dog that's got short coat, will bath them before they come home. So then there you go. He has a nice spread. He's short, not going to mat. Doesn't matter what the groomer does, because it's not always a groomer. It's sometimes just a kennel staff. It should be harmless to have him just have a quick bath before he goes home from the kennel. He's got got a really short coat.
That is a wonderful, wonderful tip. Thank you for sharing that. Because you're right. It stresses the dog out because he thinks he's going back to the kennel.
Yeah.
He's happy to get home.
Yeah. One other one that we didn't talk is seasonal haircuts. So seasonal haircuts, I don't agree with. So, because what happens is people say, oh, well, he has to have a lot more hair because it's cold out. Well, when it's cold out, you don't walk him as long. You don't spend any time outside when it's -30. That's Canadian. I don't know. Below 40 for you guys when it's colder.
About 20.
Yeah, I'm like,
20.
My mom goes to Texas for the winter, so I'm kind of used to talking that. I'm like, probably under 40, because she's always like, it was colder than 40 today. Yeah, so if it's super cold, you're not taking the dog out either.
We are not going out.
Yeah, and you're not leaving them outside. Like, they're not outside dogs anymore, so they don't need more coat to get matted and wet and messy. So most clients, I just suggest just keep him on the same haircut all year. If he's cold, put on a coat. Like, it's not hard. Whereas, and not only that, in the summer, they think take him short because it's hot, but then we turn the air conditioning on all day. Then we say, well, it's cold out, keep him with more hair, and we bring him in the house and turn the heat up. So, yeah, right? The dog's like, what is going on? So just keep them in the same manageable haircut all the time and keep them regular, and then there won't be any problem. So
that completely makes sense. Yeah. And we see that happen a lot.
Yeah. And then one more thing, I could talk forever. One more thing about shedding. So people are like, oh, we have seasonal shedding. We don't really have, we have a big seasonal shedding where they will drop a lot of their winter coat, but we have created nonstop shedding, because shedding happens by the change in the light, not the weather. So because what happens is when there's more light, it's hotter. So they naturally, in the wild, they naturally shed their coat. When it's dark, they keep it. So what we've done is we've taken away all that natural light, because we're in natural light all the time. So for them, it's always shedding season. So dogs will shed nonstop. So people are always like, oh, well, he's not supposed to shed. It's not that time of year. I'm like, they shed all year now. So that's why a lot of like double coated dogs don't have that thick coat. Like if you had a husky that does spend a lot more time outside, he will develop a winter coat that he should have and then drop it in the summer. But because he's in the house, he's going to be dropping it all year long. So that's kind of the difference. He will drop a heavier coat in the winter, in the spring, but for the most part, they'll shed nonstop. So you're never, if you've got a dog that sheds, you're going to always have a shedding dog, period.
That is fast. I know that when our dog was with us, we would joke about it, like she would blow her coat like it was her job.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating about the light.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And you're right. I mean, we have lights on all the time.
Yeah.
So
we've changed their natural cycle. So
we really
they're always,
have.
yeah, they're always going to shed.
Thus, they need to go back more regularly.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
That's the thing. If you're for clients that have, I don't know if anybody's ever had a pug. Pugs are the worst shedders in the world. So having them groomed on a regular basis, like I tell clients, because they think, oh, he doesn't have to be groomed, he has no hair. I'm like, well, all that hair that comes out on your coat and your floor will come out on the floor of the grooming salon, and that will get you through about 6 weeks until he needs to have it done again, just because we blow it out with a better dryer, whereas you just try and brush it out. So the shedding dogs do also need to be groomed. One other quick thing is people who want to do it themselves, like groom their own dog. Awesome. But what I also explain to people is life happens. So you get the dog and you're single, and it's awesome. You take him to the little place where you can do it yourself and you give him a bath. Great. Now you get married. Yeah, maybe maybe your husband wants to do it sometimes. Ooh, then you have your first baby. Ooh, it's getting a little harder to get there to that, now you have a second baby. Ooh, I can't get to bath the dog at all. Ooh, he smells. Oh, grandma's coming. It's Christmas. He needs to have a bath. Take him to the groomer. And now he's 9 and never been in a grooming salon. He is not going to enjoy that day. Right? So,
and he is going to let you know.
Yeah. And it's stressful. So taking it, and some people we get, this is always, I'll get people who call and say, so my dog's really sick and we're thinking about having him put down in a week. Can we get him groomed? No. Yeah, I'm not laughing people think that their dog should be pretty. No, he needs to be healthy. Get a dry shampoo, sprinkle him, give him a little brush. That's it. I don't do end of life groom. And I don't recommend it. I know it sounds morbid, but people don't realize that because we think of ourselves. We think human because we baby them so much, which is awesome. I baby my guys. It's not a problem. But when some things, when you think about it, it just doesn't make sense. Like your dog, it's like taking your 100-year-old grandma to the spa the day before she passes away. She's not into that. And it's the same thing for your dog. Once they get to a certain age, grooming is, for some dogs, not being able to groom them anymore is kind of that next step in the conversation of when it's going to be time to make that decision. Because if you have a dog that's a grooming dog that can't be groomed anymore because older dogs they can't handle it. It's so stressful that they just can't do it anymore. So once we have to have that conversation, and I've had to have that conversation with clients, and that it's hard to say it's getting, but they're like, well, but he eats well and he's going to and I'm like, yes, that's great. But he's, 19, I cannot in good faith anymore groom him because it's uncomfortable for everybody. And they don't stand still. They scream. They can have seizures, release themselves. Like it's just not a good situation. So having that conversation sometimes is the next step for clients to have to make that decision. So it can be pretty difficult conversation as a groomer to have with people because you know what the next step is, and without having to say it, you don't want to tell anybody to make any decisions, but you're like, I'm the last, this is not something they can do anymore. And once you can't groom them, there's not much, like they can only go for so long before that becomes inhumane. And so having to make those decisions and having that conversation as a groomer can be pretty hard. Yeah,
it's a blessed thing that you do that, though, because it's something that they have to consider. It goes in the bucket of quality of life, and there's multiple factors, but you're right. When you can't do that anymore, that's a big indicator that there is a shift, and it's going the other way. And
we close our eyes,
Yeah.
But
It's harder to see when you see them every single day, and you could, a lot of us, I think, are, we try to tell ourselves, no, it's not that bad, or no, it's not happening. But then you go away, or you get an outside perspective, and it's someone who knows your dog or your cat, and they're like, no, there really is we're really getting to that. We need to talk about that for them, for their sake. So thank you for doing that, because you're right. That is not an easy conversation.
Yeah.
So,
but I was on a happier note. We were talking about dogs' energy and, that kind of thing. I had a blind deaf dog.
Mm-hmm.
He was, let's see, I have a picture of him in here somewhere. He was born that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's him. So that's Chance. Yeah. So his eyes didn't look funny because it was something in the transmission, not in, like, he didn't have cataracts or anything. So nobody ever believed me when I told them he was blind and deaf, especially because I also spoke to him. But you can't not talk to him. So anyway, but when people would say, like, I would say, oh, he's blind and deaf, and people's first reaction was always, oh. And I said, why? Oh, like, he never went, oh, feel sorry for me. He was the best. He had a great life. He was happy. He had his quirks, but don't we all? And so this, I find Chance was always my best example of, dogs, it's not about them. It's about you, right? Your reaction when I said he was blind and deaf was sadness and felt sorry for him. He doesn't feel sorry for himself. So it's the same thing when we were talking about shaving them, right? Your dog didn't say, oh my goodness, my hair got shaved off. You did. So you are transferring that to him. Chance never had the feel sorry for me, ever, not once in his whole life. He was he had no clue that anybody else could see or hear.
Or that he was any different.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because we had a cat that went blind once, and that was and everybody said they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. Let them get used to it, So you're right. That does get to some people, but I would have never known he was looking at him. He's beautiful.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because he used to kind of sit with his nose in the air, so it looked like he was looking up at stuff. So people would be like, what's he looking at? I'm like, and for a stranger passing by, I would just say, I don't know. Like, I don't need to get into the long story about the fact it's just his nose. But yeah, he was pretty special and amazing baby, for sure.
He's beautiful. Thank you for sharing him with us. Lori, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you or to follow you?
They can look here. Canine Oasis Day Spa. I have info. So the email there, info@canineoasis.ca. And as well, I do have Instagram page for Canine Oasis. I can never, it's been so long. Canine Oasis Day Spa, I believe, is the website. I had it made like 1,000 years ago.
We will pull that up and add that into the group. I'm so happy you're on Instagram. We'll follow you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
CanineOasis.ca is the website.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it had all the words. Oh. Yeah. Someone's like, hey, you've been in there long enough.
When's lunch?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all this with us. This has been so educational, and again, it hits right in that bucket of all the things you don't know. So thank you. I mean, I'm walking away with nuggets from this that I'm like, I had no idea that was the case. So thank you. Do what?
I just noticed that my bike mirror was in that. I'm like, has that been in the picture the whole time?
No, you're good. But yeah, this has been really great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Awesome. Well, guys, you've got the email. We'll post her Instagram in the chat box for everybody, and in our Facebook group. And so go out and follow. And that's just thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. We'll get the replays.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Hug your babies for us.
I will do.